C99 Tutorial Part 9. In the last few tutorials we've been looking at input and output and using getchar and putchar. In the next program in this series we're going to count the words in the input. First I'm going to move some of the programs on my desktop into my projects directory. Recall last time we made a projects directory by using the command prompt. So here from my chapter 1 directory I'm going to use the start command to open an Explorer window. Next, move the files using the mouse. Now let's take a look at the word counting program. The word counting program looks like this. In this program we're going to use a new type called the Boolean type. The Boolean type is capable of holding values true or false. The Boolean type was not in the original versions of the C programming language. It's been recently added in the C99 standard. Therefore, if you want to use it, you'll have to include a special header file. The header file is called stdbool.h. Afterwards, to use the Boolean type, simply declare a variable with the type bool. Then the variable can have the values true or false. Any logical expressions such as is equals to, not equals to, less than, greater than, and so on, have a Boolean value of true or false. Also, there's a convention that a numeric value of 0 is false. Any other numeric value is considered true. So how does the program work? Let's take a look. At the beginning we initialize counters for the number of lines, number of words, number of characters. Those are NL, NW, and NC. And then we have a Boolean variable keeping track of whether we're currently inside a word or not. Notice we have the same while loop as before. That is, we're using the while loop to continuously get characters until the end of file is encountered. Notice the following if statement. In this if statement, we're checking to see if the character is three possibilities. If it's a space, or a new line, or a tab. These characters are special because they are our word separators. If we encounter any of these characters, then we know at this point we must no longer be inside a word, so we can update the inside word variable. For example, suppose you're the computer and you're reading character by character and you see letter, 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 and finally you see a space or a tab or a new line. Well then at that point you know that you're not inside a word anymore. Now suppose the opposite situation happens, you are not inside a word right now, and then you notice that you didn't encounter a space, a tab, or a new line. Well then at that point then you must be inside a word. And notice at this point is where we increase the word counter. In other words, when we see this transition, when we see that we were not inside a word and now we are inside a word, at this point do we decide to increase our word counter. Finally at the end, output the result. Number of lines, number of words, and number of characters. Now copy the command to compile it, and let's try to compile it on the command prompt. Run the program from your command prompt. I named mine WC, so I'll call WC. Hello world. This is a sentence. Recall that you can press Ctrl-Z and Enter to end the input from the keyboard. Okay, and then we get a result. We have 2 lines and number of words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 words, and then the number of characters. So everything seems to be working fine. Now, somewhat interestingly, it could be that you already have a program called WC in your path variable. Remember, the path variable shows the command prompt where it should look to find the commands when you type them. By convention, the command prompt first looks in your current working directory to find a program that you typed. For example, if you type WC, and if it doesn't find it in your current directory, it will search through all the directories in your path variable. Now let's try a variation on the word counting program. Suppose we want to read in our input, and for each input word I want to print the word on its own line. For example, suppose I run the program and I give as input the following. I type hello world and then 1, 2, 3, and then I press enter. So if I press enter, our program, which we haven't written yet, should convert this line into 5 lines. So each line should have its own word. Hello, world, 1, 2, 3. So as an example, here's an outline of how the program might look. So I've given it the name words2lines.c. There's a comment describing precisely what the program should do. There's a compiling command, and then there's a blank spot to write the program. So in this situation, when we're faced with a new problem that's similar to another problem, we can look at the existing problem, in this case WC, we can look at it for inspiration or for examples to try to solve the new problem. So this is one way that you can approach a new problem and then to come up with a solution. And notice that the steps we've done already are non-trivial. For example, we've already described what the input should be and what the output should be. For this program, it seems very simple what we're doing, but it turns out in larger programs they all eventually break down into small components like these.